Sweet, sweet Daddy Germ here, and welcome to But the Damn Point Is, my podcast where I just chit and chat with my friends and occasionally just acquaintances. So we'll see what's going on with that. The date, of course, is March the 30th, 2020. We are in day who knows of the quarantine slash pandemic. And my guest today is the very humorous and very exuberant Mr. Jesse Clark. Jesse, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. How about you?
I'm doing okay. It is, it's another day in our beautiful little casas where we live, where we sleep and eat. And it's important to get out and get into nature whenever you can. Just avoid all the other disgusting humans if you can.
Yeah, man. I've been hiking. I've been up to Monkey Face probably 5 or 6 times since the quarantine started,
Oh, that's
and
fantastic.
it's more crowded than Walmart
Right,
on a Sunday. Like it's just so there's everybody's out there trying to exercise, and it's like stay the fuck away from me. But
right.
also, it's nice to breathe fresh air. But
Sure.
it's weird.
Well, you know, the best thing about Earth is all the places where there aren't people. So it's funny how all of a sudden, because of this pandemic, everybody's like, well, I've got to get outside and get some nature in me. That's important. By the way, Getting Nature in Me is one of my favorite porn titles. In case you haven't seen that one, it's pretty good. It's mostly just furries, if I'm honest.
Yeah. Um, that's one reason I'm not so worried. That actually, the getting out to nature thing is one reason I'm not so worried about this pandemic. Because like, if they shut off the water, like we have a big river
Right,
flowing right through town,
right, exactly. And
and
I'm sure.
I can still boil
Yeah,
water, and you know, catch fish.
that's a
I'll
good
have to
point.
learn how to catch fish.
Right. I'm
Is it
pretty
like
sure
tag? You just, I don't
you
know.
you got to call him. I'm pretty sure that I've heard some fish calls in my day, and that's usually how
I
you get
gotta
them.
like get a Tinder profile and lie to them about my income.
And your height. Don't forget your height.
Yeah,
Fish are
shit.
very picky.
Yeah. Fortunately, they're usually down in water. Never mind. This is dumb.
Oh man. So
uh,
it's been fun. I've been trying to be productive. That's one thing that I've been doing. So you know, pro-
that's the exact opposite of what I've been trying to do.
yeah,
Um,
be as
no.
little productivity as possible there.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like I work all the time, or I
Hmm.
did, and I have been going to school and working 2 to 3 jobs at a time, for years, and I always just wish for like 2 weeks to sit at home and do nothing. Like, oh God, I wish I could have a staycation, but I could never afford to
Right.
do it. Now it's like it's
Now you
I don't
really
really
can't
like.
afford to do it.
Yeah. Now I am doing it. I mean, it's like perfect. So you mean I get to play video games and no one's gonna bug me to hang out? I don't have to lie and say I'm busy. Like,
Right. Same with me. It's so nice to just be able to be honest. Like, look, I'm just going to stay home and avoid everybody if I can.
I'm
That's
not gonna touch
perfect.
anything and I'm gonna wear a mask. But it's in your home, germs. Well, but I'm still gonna do it.
Oh, no, I'm going to wear a mask. It's a sex thing. It's a sex thing. Don't worry about it. Oh, man. So, yeah, I'm glad to hear that you're doing okay. For those that don't know, Jesse has been going to school and has actually become a teacher, which is pretty damn impressive if you ask me.
Yeah, it's all right. It's a thing. I did it, but it's funny because I was like a long-term sub. I haven't been hired anywhere yet,
Hmm.
and I was subbing for this woman who'd had a baby, and she was out for like 2.5 months. But then when the pandemic happened, they switched to online classes, and she was like, "Well, I can do that." So
Oh,
then she's like, "I don't want to give up my work, my sick days," which I totally understand. So she just took back over the class, and so I'm not teaching anymore. And obviously, comedy's dead. So I'm not
it's
doing.
sleeping.
It's sleeping.
It's hibernating. I'm not. Maybe I'm in denial. It's just sleeping. It's just
What
sleeping.
was it doing before? It's shit. Um, No,
Please
I'm kidding.
continue.
Uh, no, so I just, I'm, everything's kind of dead right now, but, I'll get, like, I'm still interviewing. I actually have an interview on Wednesday, like on the phone
Oh, nice.
interview. So that's cool. They're still hiring.
Fantastic. Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that. Obviously, you felt it was one of your callings, otherwise, you wouldn't have pursued such a thing. So, I'm
Yeah, yeah. I have a degree in environmental biology, and
bitching.
I had a hard time finding work in that field, and I honestly wasn't really into it. It's kind of a depressing thing.
Hmm.
It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I went to school up in Humboldt, and I would take these classes where, you're going to learn about a bunch of plants, or you're going to learn about a bunch of animals or something. And like,
Right.
especially with the plants one, they were like, I had to learn 500 species of plants in a semester or something like that, and be able to,
Wow.
identify them by sight. It wasn't exactly that many, but it was less than that, but 300 maybe, something like that. But they would, the lab, they would bring in these plants, and then you would look at them and you would draw them, and you would, be able, to recognize them. But it was like, the teacher would be like, every year we go out there and there's less of these wild plants and there's less of these things that we're trying to find, and it's harder for us to find certain things because they're going extinct due to climate change or due to invasive species or whatever. And it was like the same thing with the mammals and insects. Insects was a really bad one where it was like, they to try, you had to like make, historically, one thing that you had to do in the class was make like a bug collection, and like with like 50 different specimens that were all different species, and like going out and doing that has become a really big challenge
Hmm.
because they're disappearing. And so it was, not to get too depressing, but it's just, it was a hard thing to face, a hard reality to face as a biologist every day, that the earth is not doing so well.
Right.
And some people have the balls to fight with against that and to stay, in that field. And I think it was just between that aspect of it and then not being able to find a lot of work in this area, I just kind of gave up and decided I wanted to do something else. And I kind of was, you know going through a lot, and personally at that time, and I decided to go a different way. And I had a friend who was telling me how much he loved teaching, and so I decided to give it a shot and do the like prerequisites and the volunteer hours where you go hang out in a classroom for a while. And I thought, this is pretty cool,
Hmm.
and I really enjoyed it. And turns out, I'm not, because of my personality and because of doing comedy, I'm not really nervous talking in front of people.
Right.
And um, I love science, and I like to be funny, and I like to be the center of attention a lot. So, teaching is sort of just a natural thing to me.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. You definitely have, I guess I would call it an approachable personality, which is good. It's perfect for a teacher because you don't want them to feel like you're some fucking robot that they can't identify with in any way. Uh,
Right.
so I assume that you have a very easy time getting your students to pay attention just by being yourself, which, again, my favorite teachers growing up were always the ones that, number one, I felt like I could actually have some kind of connection with, and number two, the ones that were just engaged. You could tell that it hadn't been killed out of them by years and years of high school teaching or something of that nature. You can tell that they still have that fire, and I believe that you're that type of teacher, so I'm impressed,
Oh,
man. I'm excited.
thank you, thank you. Yeah, that's what I aspire to be. I appreciate you saying that. I don't remember ever having any teachers like that. Maybe I'd had a few of them, I guess, when I was younger, but I don't know. I feel like where I was, there was just so many kids, and there were a lot of problems there. It was just, I feel like all the teachers were just sort of beat down about it. But maybe it was just me and my attitude, and I was projecting, and I hated school.
Could be. Could be. Well, I don't know. I'd say that those kinds of teachers were few and far between for me as well, but I believe that those kinds of teachers definitely were the ones that I still remember to this day.
Yeah, and that's, my whole thing is connections, and and having a relationship with the kids, and you know, having them feel comfortable in class, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Oh
Right.
God, it's starting to feel like a fucking job interview.
Well, I just want to make
What are you
sure
like
you're
as a
the
teacher? Like,
right.
uh,
Yeah. How many bodies is too many bodies? That's what I want to know. Like, how many before you can't be a teacher anymore? How many times do you have to have your basement excavated? This is why I'm not a teacher, Jesse. This is why I'm not a teacher.
oh, that's
I ask
weird
the tough
because I've had
questions.
that question in an interview before, and I thought, I was like, I had an answer ready to go, but
Yeah, it's right after the "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" question. Is usually the "How many bodies is too many bodies?"
well, that depends on the answer to my next question. Um,
It's funny you should ask that. I actually have a chart here.
yeah.
Oh man, good times, good times. It's been so long since I've seen you, man. You've been out of the scene for quite a while now.
Well,
Just
I
taking a
mean,
little sabbatical.
I mean, I guess it's only been a couple months really since I quit doing the mic at the studio. Um, but yeah, it's been a while. I'll get back into it. It's just, I was taking over that long-term sub job, and
Right.
that took a lot out of me because I was, having to do all the lesson planning and everything myself, and it was
Sure.
just that's an emotionally draining job, and it just takes a lot of energy
Hmm.
to, be doing that. Plus, I'm doing the delivery thing, and um, I'm just I was too busy, and I wasn't writing jokes, and I didn't feel funny, and I kind of felt like um, I had kind of lost my love of it, I think, for a little bit,
Hmm.
and I need to take a step back and sort of have a new approach.
Well,
You know,
that's important. I think that when it starts to feel more like a grind than like something that you have passion for and have the energy to want to pursue, that's exactly the right moment to take a break, in my opinion. Better to do that
right?
than to get so burned out that you flat out abandon it, which
Yeah,
some people
yeah.
do.
Well, and it's like there's a lot of things that happen in the comedy community around here. I don't know. Is this what you want to get into right now?
Not necessarily. I don't know. I don't ultimately care. I like that the conversation can go wherever it wants.
Okay.
But if
Well,
you don't
then,
want to get into shit, we don't have to. It's all about
well, I
you.
mean, I'm not talking shit about anybody. That's not the point of what I'm trying to say.
Mhm.
I just, there's a lot of the way that the comedy community here in Chico works. There's not a lot of people who are comics who want to, who are willing to put in the work to be, you know, a paid comic
Right.
who does it for a living, me included. I have, other stuff I got going on. I'm, put in a lot of work to go to school to get a career, and that's my number one thing. And comedy is like a side thing to me, and I
Right.
love it and it's something I want to be a part of. But I'm not going to be a Dylan Collins where the dude busts his ass,
Mhm.
and doing comedy is like his number one thing. And I admire that and I appreciate that in a comic, but that's just not me, and that's not a lot of the comics. I think that's very rare here in Chico.
Mhm. Mhm.
So to get something going with the community to sort of improve it and work on the problems that we have here, such as, like, there's no comedy club, there's no dedicated space for comedy. So
Right.
no matter where you're doing comedy in Chico, either you're promoting a show at a restaurant or bar, and working with the audience that goes there and within the confines of that place, or you're competing with bar patrons,
Mhm.
you know who, like, the Studio Inn is a perfect example of that, where it's no there are people who are there to see the comedy. They said it right up front, and usually that's
Mhm.
great if there are people there, but whether there are people there to see the comedy or not, the bar regulars are there,
Yeah.
and you have to compete for their attention,
Mhm.
and that's just the way it is, and there's other places that are like that too.
Right.
And so it just, I think it can be hard, um, for a lot of people to work on, stuff, and to have consistent shows and to have, a consistent audience. And so you have to do kind of what some of the other people who I promote around here, but it's a kind of a gamble, and you have to put a
Hmm.
lot of yourself into it. And then because a lot of people in town have their own careers and they have their own thing going on outside of comedy, it's hard to get people to sort of dedicate themselves to projects and sort of and I'm not naming names because there's nobody that like I would say is like not dedicated to it. It's just, they have other things going on, and when every time I've seen a comic in town try to get something going, it can be very hard,
Oh,
you know.
absolutely.
And so, I think it's like it becomes a give and take. It's like how much of myself do I want to put into it,
Hmm.
and for what return, and it's like sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And I just don't have the energy right now to really put my all into it.
Yeah, I understand. I get it. The thing is, everybody has different reasons for being involved in comedy in any way, and everyone else has their own life in some way outside of it. I agree with you. There are people like Dylan who are insanely driven, and honestly, that's what you have to be, I assume, to make it at all. Um, I don't have any good excuse for not being more driven, other than my weird social anxiety that tells me not to go places I've never been and dumb shit like that. Stuff that I need to get over. Uh,
Yeah,
and I've been working on it, but everybody's got their own journey, I guess. At the risk of sounding like I have my own head up my ass, everybody's got their own
yeah,
journey, especially when it comes to some sort of pursuit of their dreams.
yeah. And comedians are, I mean, by trade, we're egotistical people.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, and so you get a bunch of comedians in a room, and it can be hard for anybody to get a word in edgewise. It feels like because everybody wants to dominate the conversation, and and that can be hard for somebody who has social anxiety. And someone like me, like I don't have social anxiety necessarily, but I am a homebody,
Hmm.
and I'm at a point in my life where I'm not really looking to make a bunch of friends,
Hmm.
at least not that extend outside of what we do together in the context of comedy, you
Right.
know. And so it's like I have friends who in the comedy scene who I love dearly, but they're not over at my apartment. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Hmm.
And that's just the way I am. So uh, I can see how it can be something that's hard like that.
Right. It's hard to make connections if for whatever reason you're not a hangout afterwards and have a few drinks type of guy. And I regret that because I know I'd have such a stronger bond with a lot of the people in the scene if I just were able to hang out longer. Uh,
Yeah,
but
and I don't
again,
I don't really drink because if I do drink, I have I go off the deep end, and so I don't really I'm not really proud of my behavior when I get really drunk, so I just don't do it,
right.
and um, so and that's what a lot of comics do, and it's all and then once again it all takes place in bars and stuff, and so it's like everybody drinks.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're alcoholics or anything. It's just it's a social. I mean, and then that's an aspect of American society where it's like everything that we do as people, as a group of people. If you want to hang out, it's like everybody gets drunk together.
Right.
It's like we're playing board games and getting drunk, or we're playing video games and getting drunk, or we're going to the bar, or we're hanging out at the pool and getting drunk. It's something. So it's you know,
Well, not to whatever. I'll put on my tinfoil hat for a second, but they've been getting the working class drunk so that they'll shut the hell up since the fucking Egyptian days when they would give essentially beer to the workers that were building the fucking pyramids. So it makes sense that the big national drug that nobody calls a drug, we all say, "Oh no, it's just beer," or "No, it's just a little alcohol." But it's funny that the national drug is something that has been traditionally given to people so that they wouldn't mind being slaves, right?
yeah. Well, and why? I mean, alcohol makes sense, but it's also like I don't know, man. It's hard to drink all the time. It takes a toll on your body,
Right,
and not everybody reacts right, in the same way to it. But like for me, it's pot. Like pot's what makes it is a way better drug than alcohol,
right,
But in the sense that you don't get violent and you don't have huge these emotional outbursts and I don't get
right.
stoned and call my ex-girlfriends and shit like that
Oh
like I do
man,
when I'm drinking you
right.
know
Oh man, I kind of want to hear that. Just a slightly high Jesse calling an ex. Like I still think you're a bitch. I'm just. That's all. That's
no,
all. I just wanted
no,
to
I
call you
don't
to
think
tell
any of
you.
my ex-girlfriends are bitches. I'd more be like, why shit, I forgot why I called you.
Right. Who is this? Oh yeah, I remember you.
Do you
Sorry.
still have my hat?
Yeah. Where's my Modest Mouse CD? For Christ's sakes. Oh my God. So you recently posted some pictures of yourself back in the day, and it was kind of
Yeah.
fascinating. I myself have some very similar pictures of myself in my early 20s where I look at it now and I'm like, first of all, you were on top of the world. You didn't even know it. You were living the dream. Second of all, God, you look like a goofy shithead trying to look cool. So
Oh, what?
that's yeah.
Oh, but I didn't care back then. I
Mhm.
thought I was cool. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Right, exactly.
Now it's like I don't even try because I'm like, ugh, I would look so stupid trying to look cool. Back then,
Right.
it was just, I don't know. I was a partier back then.
Yeah, so was I. Back then is when I learned why I don't drink.
Yeah.
Back then is when I figured out, hey, it's not a good thing that at least half of the parties you attend end with you saying, fuck all of you, and leaving, which is 100% true. I definitely had a few parties where it ended that way. Uh,
Yeah. Oh yeah. I definitely had that, and DUI and fights and
right.
all kinds of stuff I don't remember, and it's just not it's not a good thing. So I've been laying off that for a few years now. I think my last big outburst was like 3.5, 4 years ago.
Wow, it's been a while.
Yeah. Um, but I got I have a lot going on now. I can't even like if I drink now, I have 3 or 4 beers and I'm ready for bed. You know,
Right,
like
right,
I can't do anything. I have a couple beers and I'm ready to go to sleep. I'm ready to go to bed by like 10 o'clock every night anyway.
right. You've
That's another
reached.
reason why I don't do comedy, that as much. Is because it's like I gotta get up and work the next morning. I gotta get up at like 6:30.
Right. You can't commit to staying at a mic until potentially 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. You
Right.
know, and especially when I was hosting the mic and it was like 20 comics showed up and everybody wants to hang out and party and it's just oh god, get me out of here. I want to go to bed.
Right. Right. Well, I even have a bit about how I don't drink partially because I would get super tired, and so either I'd get blacked out drunk or I'd get super tired. So there's no
Yeah,
point.
yeah. Um, and I just I guess I don't really know what I was gonna say. I'm I like to drink. I have a few beers every once in a while,
Right.
but and I like to go. I love going to the mics and stuff. I miss going. In
Hmm.
fact, I would be going right now. I mean, it's like I I don't have any work, so I don't have anything to do. So I would totally be at the mics, but I can't because the same reason I don't have work is the same reason why there's no comedy.
Right. Exactly. Well, that's
But
nice.
I need to write new jokes. I
Hmm.
used to when I first started comedy, it was like I would write all the time, and every time I would have a thought, I would that was funny. I would put it in my phone and I would write it and I would
Hmm.
work on it. And now it's like, yeah, I never have it just doesn't come to me like it used to. I have to like concentrate more, and so I don't really spend the time writing like I should. And you know,
Right. Is that a Mitch Hedberg joke? The one that's like, if I come up with something funny but I don't have a pen nearby, I basically have to convince myself that it wasn't that funny.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I butchered the joke, but holy shit, he
No,
was.
no, that's basically it. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's
That's
what's
good.
funny. You made me think of a David Tell bit earlier where he's talking about drinking and he's talking about how, like when you black out, or as I call it, time travel.
Right. Yes. Time
You're
travel.
drinking at a bar, you black out, you wake up, you're at another bar, you're drinking, you black out, you wake up, you're at McDonald's, been
Right.
there 5 years, still on a fry later. You know?
Fucking great. Fantastic. So, what do you say we begin a little segment on my podcast that I call 20 Questions? I know that's not very original, but it's literally 20 questions, so I figured why the hell not? And the
I
point
mean,
of.
did you come up with, were you just like, these are the questions I'd want to ask, and then you counted them, you're like, oh shit, it's 20, or did you
No,
try to come up with
I
20 questions?
tried to come up with 20 questions, so it's really my fault. Thank you for ruining the magic, Jesse. I
Uh-huh.
appreciate it. Thank you for
Yeah.
ruining the magic. But the point of these
Yeah, you sound
questions.
just like my father. He was a magician, and he used
Yeah,
to beat me with that wand.
he was great at disappearing whenever my mom wanted something. Yeah, interesting. So the point of these 20 questions is basically to actually get to know a person. I tried to think of questions that I'd want to know about someone. Uh, things that you know about a friend or loved one that makes you feel like you actually know them. Now, obviously, if I ask you anything you're not comfortable talking about or anything like that, you're welcome to say, fuck you, Germ, I'm sick of your crap, I'm leaving. Which seems like an overreaction on your part. I would prefer that you just said I'm not comfortable talking about that, if
But
that's the
I'm welcome
case.
to say that if I want to.
Yeah, if you want to
Okay.
just go off on me, that's fine.
Just as long as the option is there. I
Yeah,
probably won't choose it, but it's good to know.
right. It's the nuclear option, one might call it. So perfect. So here we are. Uh, the first thing I wanted to ask you, we kind of already went over a little bit, but how are you keeping sane during the quarantine? You did mention going out a bit and hiking and things like that. What else are you doing that might be helping you to feel comfortable in this weird time?
I'm playing all the video games, man. It's
Yeah.
like I love playing video games. I mean, I like reading and watching movies and stuff, and I've been doing that too. But it's like, I'm like, you ever seen that Twilight Zone episode where the guy? I think it was the first episode where like the guy, uh,
Is all
he
by
all he wants to do
himself.
is be left alone and read,
Oh,
and
that
then
one.
like everybody dies and it's just him, but then he
Yes.
breaks his glasses. And he's like, ah, fuck, you know.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's called Time Enough at Last, and it stars Burgess Meredith, the guy that played Mickey in the Rocky movies. I'm a big
yeah,
fan
he
of
was
Twilight
also
Zone, so
the
sorry about that.
Penguin on TV's Batman.
Are you
Did you know
still with
that?
me?
Did you hear
I
me?
feel like we might have. Did I
Hello?
mute it? Okay. So what we
You
were
are very
going
quiet
over.
though.
I'm very quiet. Oh, shit! I had the mic away from my fucking mouth. I'm a professional, Jesse.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to get shit going here. So the last thing that happened was you were saying it's kind of like that Twilight Zone episode where the guy just wants to read and then he breaks his glasses.
No, no, you were about to ask me the questions.
Oh, I know that.
Okay.
We were in the middle of the. We were talking about the quarantine.
Okay, yeah, so that guy and that, oh, that's right, that's, okay, so you said that it was Burgess Meredith,
Right.
and he's the guy who played the trainer in Rocky, and I was like, yeah, he's also the Penguin
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, he's the Penguin. That's correct.
on TV,
On
or what?
on TV, you know Johnny Penguins. He's a lawyer. Yeah. Jim.
um, yeah, and, yeah, I love his character in The Rock. You gotta hurt him, Rock!
Right. So
Yeah.
great. So great. What is it? You're gonna eat lightning and you're gonna crap thunder. That's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah.
I've been thinking a lot about Rocky 3 lately because Trump reminds me of the Russian dude who's just like, if you all die, you die.
Right. Exactly right. Exactly right. Just pumped up on chemicals. If he dies, he dies. Uh, good times. So back to the questions now that our technical difficulties have been resolved, I hope.
I
Uh,
hope.
So the next thing I wanted to ask you was, what do you think the most admirable trait in humanity is?
Like in a person or in humanity as a
In
whole.
humanity as a whole, what's something about humanity that gives you hope or positive feelings?
Um, I think when we're under good leadership, we have the ability to work together to create really cool things,
Mm-hmm.
and um, to push society and technology farther. I mean, I'd like to see things advance to a point where we're not damaging the environment so much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but things like going to space, and decoding the human genome,
Mm-hmm.
and all the things that we can do to fight this virus that's going on right now because we've been able to decode its DNA, its
Right.
RNA, and find ways to attack it. That's what they're working on right now. We wouldn't have been able to do that 30 years ago, and it's because of the Human Genome Project. But
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of stuff to me is really cool and worthy of admiration. Um, but we have a lot of things to not admire as well.
Well, that's actually
But
my next question. What do you find most deplorable as far as traits in humanity goes?
um, I think our blindness to the damage that we do as a society that um, there's never really been a just society where everybody is equal and everybody has what they need and there's not poverty and huge disparity between the haves and the have-nots.
Right.
um, and just like I read a lot of history, a lot of ancient history, and a lot of natural history, and the fact that everywhere when humans first started spreading out of Africa, everywhere they went, they killed off all the large animals
Mm-hmm.
that were there. And there are a lot of like North America used to have camels and lions and giant sloths and bears and all kinds of really cool stuff and rhinoceros and all that.
Wow.
And we killed them all off when we got here. You know, and I think that's kind of a shitty thing. Um, but it's just I mean, maybe some people might see that as it just shows our dominance and ingenuity and how smart we are and how we eliminate threats.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, um,
It
I
didn't
would
show
like to
any
see
forethought.
yeah. But there's also a lot of people who recognize that in people and are trying to do something about it. And so, I mean, I think maybe going back to your last question, I think that might be my favorite thing about people is our willingness to fight for what we believe in against
Mm-hmm.
adversity.
Mm-hmm.
So many people here in Chico um, are working to help the homeless and to fight poverty, and there's a lot of opposition, and there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people who have different approaches or disagree with the philosophy of doing those things, and so there can be a lot of opposition. And the fact that people still give their time and volunteer to go out and do that kind of stuff, I think is amazing.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I myself, on the opposite end of that subject, I myself have known at least a few people that were very not in my backyard about the homeless issue, especially once everything happened with Paradise. With Paradise, for those that don't know, Paradise, California is a town very, very close to Chico, and was it, gosh, was it 2 years ago now, or
No, it
was
was
it
it was about a year and 5 months.
a year and 5 months ago? The whole damn town burned down due to, well, I don't think we know exactly why, but either way, it was a tragedy, a damn tragedy. Thousands and thousands lost their homes and lives, and it's awful. But the point I'm trying to get at is all those people were displaced, and unfortunately, a lot of them had to come here, whether we had a place for them or not. And I knew quite at least a few people, I shouldn't say quite a few, but I knew at least a few people that were very not in my backyard about the whole concept of a homeless camp. Even for people that literally are recently homeless, there was such a pushback. And I have to ask, if not in your backyard, in whose backyard? Somebody's got to take care of these people. These people need a chance to thrive, and they're not going to get it living on the streets.
Yeah, I uh, I like homeless. It's going to exist. You know what I mean? They exist in every society, and they always
Mm-hmm.
have. And you know, it's there are some. I believe there are some homeless who choose to be homeless.
Mm-hmm.
There are some homeless who are that way because, you know, temporarily, because they've lost their job or, you know, whatever happened, and they're working towards getting out of that position.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of them suffer from mental health issues, and a lot of them, you know, have serious head trauma that has caused them to not be able to hold down a job and not be able to, you know, do the things that people do in order to obtain and hold on to shelter.
Right.
And
I
you
agree.
know, it's what we do as a society, how we treat those people, I think defines who we are. And
Man.
if we're just leaving them out in the cold to die, that says a lot.
Right. I
I don't want to be in that society.
No, I don't
You
either.
know?
I don't either. And for anyone that doesn't know, I should have mentioned this as well. Jesse here has put together at least a few now, I think it is, charity shows that were very, very, very successful. The most recent one was Lollapalooza, LOL Palooza, and that was all for Safe Space. Speaking of shelters, Safe Space Winter Shelter, which is pretty damn impressive, dude. We were talking about driven people before, and I've noticed that you're very driven when it involves helping others. Not that you're not driven about just promoting and booking shows, but holy cow, man, you really accomplished a hell of a lot.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Um, I don't. I guess my philosophy towards it is that at the level of commitment that I'm willing to put into comedy, I'm not going to make money doing it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I might make a little bit of money here and there. It's fun to promote shows, like I do the Parkside show, and it's fun to do that because I make enough money that I pay myself back for the expense of advertising it. I make a little bit of money, and I pay all the comics. I pay an out of town comic. Everybody has, you know, some stage time, and it's fun. You know, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
paying them money. It's not like they're making enough to make a living off of it or anything.
Right.
But you know, it's just one show every once in a while. But um, that's fun. But on a whole, you know, I'm not trying to make a bunch of money as a comic. But what I can do is, you know, people will come out and pay money if they know it's for charity.
Mm-hmm.
They'll also do it, you know, just for regular comedy shows. But, you know, um, that's just not the approach I wanted to take when I did it. And you know, I want to do Lollapalooza again, but I think I'll change it a lot, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, and do it. I was thinking maybe doing just one show for charity and then doing the rest of it as a for-profit thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we can pay all the comics and everything. But you know, that's kind of a long way off. And who knows when we're going to be able to do something like that again.
Right.
And if the Chico Comedy Festival gets postponed, well, it is postponed, I think. If they do it when the quarantine's lifted, you know, I'm not going to want to do my festival then right away.
No, I understand. Yeah. Hmm. Well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, I guess.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Anyway,
So, let's see here. What's next? What makes you angry, Jesse?
oh God. Um, like, oh, that's an interesting because, like, do you mean just superficially angry, or like what you know about life makes me angry?
I mean, either way. I want a decent example. You could even give me an example for either side of that coin.
Um, You know, you know what I hate is this whole attitude in the United States about it's just it's part of our culture where it's kind of like doing what you're not supposed to do is a form of protest.
Right.
You know, like there are people who think that the disease is a hoax or it's bullshit or it's not
Mm-hmm.
real. They're like I have neighbors who I heard them outside talking about it, you know, and saying, you know, they don't care about it, they're not worried about it. It's just this Chinese virus that they don't, you know, isn't going to affect them, and
Mm-hmm.
they're going to go out as much as possible, you know, and so they like go